The Mandalorian and Grogu, which started off as a Disney Plus series and aired for 3 seasons, and then now is transitioning to the big screen. Does it pay off? Let's break it down. The Jedis and the nature of fighting the Galactic Empire and constantly being on the run and dealing with individuality and isolation that you saw with characters like Rey and Luke Skywalker, and what does it mean to be a Jedi. This film does not do that. This movie focuses on the bounty hunter lifestyle, right? We get to see the Mandalorian, played by Pedro Pascal, and his companion Grogu having to complete missions for the Republic. But Mandalorian plays as sort of an independent character. He's not really with the Galactic Empire. He's not with the Republic. He sort of operates on his own, kind of like a Western / John Wick type of character. And that's what I loved about this movie, is that it doesn't necessarily, it gives us what we wanted to see, a part of Star Wars that we've never necessarily seen. We get to see the dirty underground cities and the crime and the mafia and the mob bosses, and that aspect of Star Wars that we didn't necessarily get to see in the other movies because there just wasn't enough time. They were sort of focusing on the other things that made this franchise so popular. What I loved is most about this movie is the Mandalorian character's relationship with Grogu. That is the heart and soul of this movie. It does pay off. You do see that bond, that connection, the love that those two characters have for each other, and how they protect one another. Ultimately, the story is about protection and survival in this brutal crime syndicate type world, and it really dives deep into that, and we really see that aspect in this movie. Another aspect of this movie that I think a lot of people are going to have issues with, because this series started on Disney Plus and then transitioned into the big screen, there's going to be a lot of comparisons to the fact that this franchise, this movie feels like a TV show, right? I think that is something that pacing issues are noticeable in this movie. It does feel like this could have been a TV series, right? Where they could have just been 90-minute episodes each and put it on Disney Plus. And it's just going to be a normal thing that people are going to compare it to, just because that's where Mandalorian started. And I think it is a much bigger scale than the show, but there are some editing issues, there are some tonal issues that I felt like could have, like everything is a mission, and then once the mission is complete, there's another mission. And that's basically the entire plot point, where it's just trying to get the next mission done. I feel like if they focused a little more on the Grogu Mandalorian relationship or more on other characters, they would have been able to kind of stay away from that, but they weren't able to get sort of that pacing 100% down. And I think that's the biggest sort of flaw of this film. And also, I would have loved to see more of Mandalorian, more of his backstory for audiences who hadn't seen the TV series. If they could have addressed who this guy was and his sort of choices that he's making and how he became to be a bounty hunter. They don't. This movie starts off right into the story, right into the mission, right away. It gets you sort of pulled in. And they do a good job where it does stand on its own, and I think that was sort of the main goal, is to make sure this movie stands on its own, that you don't necessarily need to watch a Disney Plus series. And it's fun, and it's a great ride from sort of beginning to end. You get incredible action sequences and fighting pits and great shootouts. I feel like Western movies, and it's an adrenaline rush. They get you going with these incredible Star Wars action sequences that you love. You get puppeteers that they bring back from those original movies, and you get to see Grogu sort of evolve a little bit. You don't get to see Grogu as an adult, and I think that's a criticism a lot of audiences are going to have, is they wanted to see more of Grogu kind of grow and be an adult, but they keep him the childlike, sort of infant-like character throughout the entire movie. Because I feel like audiences, the way that this character is, it needs to stay that way in order for the story to work, and I kind of see why they did that. And of course, Pedro Pascal is great in the film. His voice, he captures the tone of the Mandalorian, and he has the charisma and the style of sort of carrying this franchise, and I think he's done a great job. And of course, I think ultimately what Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and the whole Star Wars brass wanted to do was to make a cool 80s science fiction adventure fantasy film. And I feel like they captured that in this movie. You do get a real adventure from beginning to end, from the opening sequence all the way to the very last frame. They capture that heart and soul of what we love about Star Wars. And I feel like it worked for me. I like this movie, probably my favorite Star Wars movie since Force Awakens. And I liked it that it was a different part of the Star Wars universe we don't typically see. Other movies didn't really capture the tone and were overly reliant on legacy characters, which is the number one problem I've had with Star Wars, is they're really attached to those original characters, particularly the main three, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Leia. This movie does not. Now, there are legacy characters in this movie, but it's not the main driving point. And it's the legacy character that was kind of sort of secondary, right? It wasn't one of the main ones. This franchise, what makes this Mandalorian Grogu, the reason why this is probably my second favorite Star Wars movie, is because this movie tries really hard to develop new characters that people want to see on the screen, new characters we can get attached to, and they're the leads. And they're the sort of foundation of the movie. Mandalorian and Grogu, these are original characters that were created, or characters that were not in the original franchise. And it's always risky trying to introduce people to an IP that we've all grown up in love with. And I think this movie works very well. And I really enjoyed it, and it's a great sort of summer blockbuster film to sort of kick off the summer season. And I think if you're probably gonna want to check this out on the big screen. It does work also on streaming. It does. I think a lot of people are gonna watch on streaming because it has that Disney Plus connection. But overall, I'm gonna give this movie a 7.9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end. If you really like this film, Rube, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like and comment and subscribe down below. Thanks, guys.